There's something sacred about being the peace in someone's life. Not just the thrill, not just the beauty, but the peace, that unshakable calm that enters a man's spirit when he comes near you and finally feels like he can exhale. And in a world where everyone is trying to impress, outshine, or compete, peace is the one thing he can't find just anywhere. A woman who knows how to bring that peace into a man's heart even once creates an imprint he cannot forget. Because the truth is, no matter how many options a man might have, no matter how many faces or flings fill his inbox or cross his path, it is the woman who brings him peace that stays with him long after the others fade. Peace isn't weakness. It isn't passiveness. It's power. It's the energy that says, I don't need to control you to feel safe. I don't need to chase you to feel worthy. That kind of energy is so rare that when a man feels it, truly feels it, he begins to crave it. You become his sanctuary. You become the only space in his chaotic world where he doesn't have to perform, doesn't have to lead, doesn't have to win. He can just be. And that more than any curve, more than any charm, is what makes a man return. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. A woman who is at peace within herself becomes peace for everyone she connects with. She doesn't rush to react. She doesn't try to prove her worth. She doesn't compete with other women or try to outrun his freedom. She simply stands in her fullness and lets him feel the calm in her presence. And when he does, he starts seeing life differently. He starts making different choices, not because he's been manipulated or convinced, but because he's aligned with what feels good to his soul. This isn't about silence. It's not about holding in your truth. Peaceful doesn't mean passive. It means you know how to communicate without chaos. It means you can express what you need without burning bridges. It means you're grounded in who you are, so you don't let every moment shake you. You become a woman who knows how to hold space. And when a man sees that kind of maturity, that kind of calm confidence, he knows he's not just dealing with a temporary high, he's looking at home. It only takes one moment of that kind of peace to shift his entire perspective. Maybe he's used to women testing him, trying to control him, needing him to constantly validate their worth. But when he meets you and you don't demand those things because you've already found that wholeness in yourself, he feels the difference. It's not that you don't care, it's that you care differently. You're not trying to win him, you're just being you. And the freedom of that, the lightness of that is what makes you stand out in a sea full of pressure. Because men don't just fall for beauty, they fall for peace. They fall for the woman who doesn't bring storms into their already stressful lives. The woman who sees him clearly, who speaks truthfully, who stands confidently in her own light without dimming his. When you can offer that just once, it lingers, it plants a seed. Even if he doesn't know how to name it right away, he'll feel it. And in time, he will come to understand that peace like that doesn't come around often. And no matter how many choices he may have, none of them compare to the calm he felt with you. And that sits what makes him choose you. Most people only see what a man shows them. They admire the title, the confidence, the status, the way he moves through the world like he has it all together. But very few stop long enough to ask what's underneath that image. Very few care enough to look past the armor he wears and ask who he really is when he's not trying to be strong, successful, or stoic. That's why so many men walk around unseen, praised for what they do, but rarely loved for who they are. But when a woman comes along and sees past the mask, when she speaks to the man behind the image, something inside him awakens, not his ego, but his soul. There's a reason men remember women who made them feel seen, not flattered, not seduced, seen. Because when a man feels truly seen, not for the version of himself he performs, but for the truth of who he is underneath all the noise, it disarms him. It breaks through years of conditioning that told him he had to be tough, perfect, or always in control to be worthy of love. Suddenly he realizes he doesn't have to try so hard around you. He doesn't have to impress you with what he's earned or conquered. With you, he can just be, and that's where real emotional connection begins. Seeing a man doesn't mean you excuse his flaws or ignore red flags. It means you recognize that beneath whatever pain, pride, or protection he carries, there is still a human heart, one that has probably longed to be accepted without performance. You notice the quiet pauses between his words. You hear the truth behind what he's not saying. And more than that, you offer the safety that says, I'm not here to fix you. I'm not here to use you. I just want to know the real you. That kind of presence is rare, it's healing, it's unforgettable. Because the truth is, most people are looking for connection, but few know how to create space for it. They look at what's presented to them and form opinions without ever going deeper. But when you look at a man and don't just ask, what do you do? Or what can you offer me? But instead wonder, what shaped your heart? What are you carrying in silence? You separate yourself from the rest. You speak directly to his humanity, not just his masculinity. And that experience, even if it happens only once, marks him. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's a quiet remembering. A moment that lingers long after he leaves your presence. Because while others may have praised his strength, you honored his vulnerability. While others chased what he could provide, you appreciated who he is. And that appreciation doesn't come with expectations, it comes with presence. That's what makes it feel different. That's what makes you feel different. And when a man feels that kind of connection, even in a sea of options, he knows he's encountered something rare. Because in a world full of people trying to benefit from his mask, you're the one who reached for the man underneath it. And that kind of connection, that kind of soul level recognition, it's not something he can forget. It's not something he can replace. It's something he quietly treasures, even if he can't yet explain why. And it's in that quiet space, that sacred pause between being seen and being understood, that he starts to choose you, not out of pressure, not out of need, but because something deep inside him finally feels recognized. Most men aren't used to being chosen like that. They're used to being needed for provision, for validation, for security. But when a woman doesn't need him to complete her and still says, I choose to walk beside you, he doesn't feel pressure, he feels honored. That choice, made from strength and not survival, creates a bond deeper than attraction. It shows him that she's not leaning on him for her sense of worth. She's already rooted in her own identity, her own peace, her own self-love. And when she chooses him from that place, it elevates him. This is the secret so many miss. Men attach to women who make them feel wanted, not used. When you move through love with confidence and clarity, when you're able to say, I want you in my life, but I don't need you to fill a void, you offer him something rare, freedom within connection. That freedom, that space to be himself without the fear of being swallowed by someone else's insecurity, gives him permission to be more open, more expressive, more available. Being chosen is different than being needed. One feels empowering, the other feels exhausting. A man knows the difference, and even if he has 1,000 other options, he will always remember the woman who didn't pull at his shirt, who didn't pressure his timeline, who didn't guilt him into staying. She simply was, and that alone invited him in. She didn't lose herself to love him. She made room for him in a life she already loved. That is powerful. That is unforgettable. So many relationships fall apart because they begin with imbalance, one person trying to complete themselves through the other. But when two whole people come together, not out of loneliness, but out of alignment, the relationship feels like a choice, not a chain. That's when love thrives. That's when it expands. Because it's not built on fear. It's built on mutual respect, on shared vision, on deep emotional security. And when a man feels that, when he feels like you're choosing him out of desire, not dependence, he's drawn to you in a way he can't explain. He'll think about how light it felt to be around you, how much space you gave him to breathe and be, how you didn't try to control his movements, but trusted in your own worth enough to let things unfold naturally. That's the energy that makes him choose you. That's the kind of woman he can't forget. Because men don't attach to pressure. They attach to peace, to presence, to power, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need to scream to be felt, the kind that says, I'm good with or without you, but I'd still love to build with you. And when you give him that once, even just once, you plant a seed in his spirit, and that seed will grow every time he's reminded of the difference between being needed and being chosen. And in the end, he'll choose the woman who chose herself. When a woman understands the rhythm of emotional presence, she moves differently. She listens differently. She shows up in a way that doesn't demand attention but naturally holds it. In a world where everyone is fighting to be heard, a woman who listens not just to respond but to understand creates a space where a man feels safe enough to open up. And that is a gift. Because emotional safety isn't about fixing someone's problems or being their constant cheerleader. It's about being present enough to let them unfold without fear, without judgment, and without being rushed into a version of themselves that makes someone else more comfortable. Most men grow up being told not to feel too much. They're praised for being stoic, for being providers, for holding it together. So when they enter relationships, they often carry the weight of unspoken fears, insecurities, and emotional wounds that they've never felt allowed to express. When a woman comes along who doesn't shy away from emotion, who doesn't see vulnerability as weakness, it's like a breath of fresh air. She doesn't flinch when he speaks his truth. She doesn't shame him for being soft. Instead, she leans in and she holds space. Holding emotional space is an act of strength, not fragility. It means you are so grounded in your own emotions that someone else's doesn't threaten or overwhelm you. It means you can sit with discomfort without trying to control it, and you can hear pain without making it about you. That kind of emotional maturity is what allows a man to feel like he can bring all parts of himself to you, not just the confident, composed version, but the parts he usually hides. And once he knows he can do that, something shifts in the way he sees you. Because very few people have the capacity to do that. Most listen to respond. Most react out of fear, out of control, or out of ego. But when you become the woman who can calmly hold emotional space without judgment, without trying to change him, you become rare. He may not say it out loud. He may not have the words for it, but deep down he knows with you he is safe. Emotional connection doesn't come from constant talking. It comes from intentional presence. It's in the way you notice the change in his tone. It's in how you sit in silence with him and let it be enough. It's in the softness of your gaze when he feels lost, and the way you don't try to fix him but simply see him. That emotional depth is what makes him open up. And once a man opens up emotionally to a woman, he attaches to her on a level that runs far deeper than physical attraction. He might have had others before who were beautiful, exciting, even charming, but none of them made him feel like he could lay down the armor. None of them let him rest. And when you give him rest, he doesn't forget it. He might not have been looking for it, but once he finds it, he knows how rare it is. And more importantly, he knows how good it feels to finally be accepted fully, not just admired selectively. You don't have to speak loudly to make an impact. Sometimes your presence is the answer. Sometimes your calm is the invitation. When you bring emotional safety into a space where performance is the norm, you awaken something in a man that no one else ever reached. And that awakening becomes the reason why, out of 1,000 other options, he'll quietly and confidently choose you. Respect isn't always loud. It isn't always declared or demanded. Often it's shown in the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you respond when emotions run high. And when a woman carries herself with quiet confidence and unwavering self-respect, a man feels it instantly. It sets the tone for how he engages. Because deep down, a man craves not just affection, but respect, and not the kind that's handed out easily, but the kind that's rooted in authenticity. When you give that to him, not as a performance, but as a reflection of your inner standards, you make him look at you differently. Many people underestimate how powerful it is when a woman respects not only a man, but herself, because self-respect speaks before you do. It's in your posture, your patience, your boundaries. It tells him, I know who I am. I know what I deserve. And I won't settle for less, not out of arrogance, but out of love for myself and for what's possible in real connection. That energy draws a man in, not because you demand his attention, but because your presence commands it without ever needing to raise your voice. A man becomes emotionally attached when he sees that you hold him to a higher standard, not through control or criticism, but through the quiet clarity of your expectations. You're not trying to change him, you simply show him through how you live and love what honor looks like. You communicate through your actions, I will give you the best of me, but only if you're willing to meet me there. And that invitation isn't forceful, it's empowering. Respect also means you don't try to rescue him from his own journey. You allow him space to grow, to fall, to get back up. You don't shrink to make him feel big, and you don't belittle him to feel strong. Instead, you mirror the kind of strength that supports without suffocating, that encourages without enabling. And when a man sees that in a woman, when he sees that she believes in him without losing herself, he begins to trust her in a way he doesn't trust many. You see, emotional attachment isn't built overnight. It's built through consistent experiences of being valued, understood, and challenged in healthy ways. When a man feels respected, not just for what he provides, but for who he's becoming, he associates you with growth, with alignment, with purpose. And that kind of emotional resonance makes him think about the future differently. It makes him consider commitment not out of pressure, but out of inspiration. He knows that if he stays in your life, he will have to rise, not because you force him to, but because the way you move doesn't allow anything less than truth, accountability, and love. That's powerful, that's rare. And when he realizes that your respect is not easily earned, but deeply meaningful, it becomes something he wants to protect, something he doesn't want to lose, because it makes him feel seen in the highest version of himself, not the one he's pretending to be, but the one he's capable of becoming. There is something profoundly unforgettable about a woman who doesn't chase. A woman who knows her worth so deeply that she allows space for pursuit, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment with her truth. In a world where everyone seems to be grasping for attention, where love often feels like a competition, a woman who is patient enough to let love come to her stands out in a way that no performance ever could. She's not trying to win him. She's not trying to impress him. She simply knows that the right man will recognize her value without her needing to sell it. When you operate from a place of quiet confidence and self-trust, you shift the entire dynamic of a relationship. You don't beg for time. You don't plead for clarity. You don't pressure someone to choose you. Instead, you allow the natural flow of connection to reveal what's real. You know that what's meant for you will not require chasing. It will recognize you, respect you, and pursue you willingly. And that energy is magnetic. It teaches him something powerful, that true value doesn't come with urgency. It comes with presence, with peace, with patience. When a man feels this kind of energy from a woman, it changes the way he approaches her. He's no longer driven by the thrill of the chase or the pull of ego. He feels something deeper, a sense of respect, of curiosity, of admiration, because you've shown him that your love isn't a transaction. It's a gift, and it will only be shared with someone who meets you with the same level of clarity, commitment, and care. You don't compete. You don't compare. You don't collapse into desperation when someone doesn't choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. You've already done the inner work that makes you whole. So anyone who enters your life isn't filling a void. They're simply complementing your journey. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes a man look back even if he walks away at first. He remembers the way you didn't chase, the way you respected his process, and more importantly, your own. In that space of patience and alignment, you create something rare, a connection based on truth, not fear. And if he's ready, truly ready, he will feel that. He will feel the difference between a woman who needs to be loved and a woman who chooses to love. He'll sense the strength in your stillness, the power in your boundaries, and the beauty in your confidence. And he'll know deep in his spirit that this is not the kind of woman he can find anywhere. Men don't emotionally attach to chaos. They attach to consistency, to energy that is calm, rooted, and sure of itself. So when you become the woman who is patient enough to wait for what aligns and wise enough to walk away from what doesn't, you stop trying to be chosen and you start living like the prize you are. And in doing so, you give him the opportunity to rise into a version of himself that's worthy of standing beside you.